Hello and welcome to Fox Sports Lab NRL. I'm Eloise Sohier and with me are NRL greats Josh Morris and Chris Lawrence alongside stats guru Tim Williams. Let's get right into the big Thursday night blockbuster. Obviously this is a huge game for Wayne Bennett to come up against his former side. He's already faced a number of them this season. Chris, you don't think they can get the job done over the Rabbitohs?
No, I think South are going to get the job done. They were sensational against the Dogs last week. They really turned it on. Their key players were really impressive, especially Latrell Mitchell. And I think if they turn up with that attitude again, they're a type of side that when they build momentum, they get that confidence, they're very hard for any team to stop. The Dolphins have probably exceeded expectations thus far, but I think if South turn up in that same form, they're going to be very hard to stop.
You talk about Latrell Mitchell. We know that Jason Demetriou said last week that he really wants him to get his hands on the ball more, get more involved. And we saw that. Is that a little bit of a warning to the Dolphins, what they can expect?
Yeah, I certainly think it is. I think after the Storm game, him and Cody were criticised about their lack of involvement, and they were at the forefront of everything against the Bulldogs, involved in nearly every try. So when they are playing well and they're getting their hands on the ball more, there's more chance of more points. So ominous signs, and if, as Chris said, if they can continue that, there's no reason why they can't go on with a victory here as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Tim, looking at the Dolphins, Jesse Bromich's return, that's a big boost for this side, who are missing a few key players and a little bit short on depth in terms of the squad.
Yeah, absolutely, Eloise. And I think it's been so impressive this season that the Dolphins just to get up for just about every game. Outside of that Dragons loss, they've really been quite good every single round, and their ability to overcome injuries to key players. We know they've lost Sean O'Sullivan, Anthony Milford in the halves already this season. They've got, I think, their third string 5'8" in this weekend in Cody Nikorima. So Isaiah Katoa, still a teenager, he's been fantastic. They lost Jeremy Marshall-King for a few weeks there. At one stage, they lost Felice Kafusi, and they're still getting up for games and not just being competitive, but winning games. So, I mean, while I do think the Bunnies come out on top in this one, should we doubt the Dolphins again?
Felice is back this week as well. We can't understate his value in the team as well. He was their enforcer before he went for a three-week spell. So they're going to need him to come out and repay the faith as well. Yeah. So
I think that's going to keep him in the game. I think the thing they might struggle with is on the edges. Souths are just so dangerous on the edges, and they don't need much of an opportunity to really ice that. We saw, some of the half breaks turn into tries. With Latrell Mitchell and his support play last week, he was really anticipating the play, even at times getting in front, pushing up the middle and getting in front of the line break. So if he's in that mood, Cody Walker's in that mood, and Dane McCook's running, they turn those half opportunities into tries. And I just don't think on the edges the Dolphins are going to be experienced enough to match it with them.
And you know that Latrell's up when he is supporting like that as well, because that has always been a knock as well, that in terms of his fitness levels and being able to keep up his supports. And most of his tries were from supports on the weekend. So if he keeps that up, there's no reason that they can convert those line breaks into tries off the back of his support.
One of my favourite things about the Bunnies this season is, for the first time in as long as I can remember, their right edge has been more dominant than the left edge. For years, it's always been that left edge of Cody playing out the back, sweeping out to Alex Johnson, who finishes just about every time. All the dominance has come down the right edge. We're seeing Campbell Graham having an absolute field day because of how good the right edge is. And a credit to the coaching there, but also Lockie Ilias on the right edge. So he's been terrific, but a big part of it. And the fact that the Bunnies' right edge is becoming arguably as good as the left, that's dangerous.
So you're saying it was Lockie Ilias has made that he's a bit more confident in going right?
Yeah.
Big time. I think Campbell Graham as well. I think he's really stamped his claim as one of the best centres in the comp, not just defensively, but his attack. He got a hat-trick on the weekend. He wouldn't look out of place in a Blues jersey this year, no doubt.
And with Josh Adokar now gone long-term, there's a spot for him, I think.
Yeah, plenty to talk about in that Origin arena. Just on the big ins and outs this week, you talk about the Rabbitohs' right edge. On the left edge, they do welcome back Alex Johnson. That's a huge boost for them, no matter where he's playing, and also to Jai Arrow as well.
Yeah, massive. As Tim said, their right edge, has probably been the better edge, but you bring Alex Johnson back on the left edge, just makes them so dangerous across the park. They know how to execute plays. They know how to turn half opportunity into a try, particularly Alex Johnson, and I think that's why they're going to get the win. And you talk about a guy like Jai Arrow, that experience in the middle is definitely going to help them. They've had some injuries in that middle third, and sometimes when they have lost a game, they've lost that middle, which hasn't allowed the edges to really shine. A guy like that back in the team is really going to help them.
Yeah, absolutely. So would you say the difference here is the fact that they have a little bit more of experience in these sort of arenas as opposed to a new outfit in the Dolphins?
Yes and no. I think the cohesion as well, as Tim alluded to with the halves pairings, they've gone through a few already. The the Bunnies really nailed theirs on the weekend, and they've got confidence off the back of that. So I think that therein lies the difference.
Yeah, absolutely. The Dolphins are one of the season's great storylines, but our three panellists are tipping the Rabbitohs. The Roosters were blown off the park against Melbourne in round 6, but head to Shark Park armed with a tremendous record against Cronulla. And Josh, you're backing a return to form for the Chooks.
Yeah, look, I think they were very disappointing against the Storm. They always seem to get up against the Sharks playing out there at Shark Park, so I've tipped a Roosters victory.
The only thing I would say to that is the Sharks are coming off the bye and coming off a loss, which they probably should have won that game. I don't think they dropped 2 games in a row last year, and you've got Craig Fitzgibbon coming up against his old club at Shark Park. I think the Sharks can get the job done.
Chris is backing the Sharks. Now the action continues on Friday night. It's the Battle of Brookie, and Tim, you're backing the Seagulls for this one.
Yeah, a bit of an upset in this one, Eloise. And look, it will be a tough game, but Melbourne have bounced back to some serious form after a slow start to the year, but it's the Battle of Brookie. There are these games and these rivalries that clubs have that you boys know all about that sides just get up for. And while Manly lost a couple on the trot, you put a line through that Penrith game. They make every team look silly. Tommy Trbojevic, there's a bit of a worry about back spasms with him, but provided he's good to go, I think Manly can cause an upset at home here. And
also, too, of course, that Tommy Trbojevic at fullback, but also too Cameron Munster at fullback for the Storm. That's a little bit of a shake-up in the spine.
I like it. As much as he can touch the ball, the better for the Melbourne side, and he's playing some awesome footy. So I've got the Storm winning this one in an upset.
Yeah, well, there you go. 2 fascinating games. Chris and Tim are with the Sharks and Seagulls, but Josh is tipping the Roosters and Storm. 2 last-up losers meet when the struggling Cowboys cross the ditch to take on the Warriors on Saturday night. And Josh, you like the Warriors at home?
I do. I think they're making their home ground a fortress at the moment. I think off the back of Sean Johnson in career best form, they can get the job done against the Cowboys.
They are missing Maria Martin as well with that ankle injury. Does that hurt their depth? Also to Wade Egan?
Certainly does, yeah. Probably Wade Egan's had a tough trot, so, we see Dylan Walker come into the halves there for that one. Look, I'm siding with the Warriors as well. I think it'll be a tight game. The Cowboys, they've struggled this year. I don't like the way they're using Valentine Holmes. He's their strike weapon in that side. He's having plenty of runs, but he's doing it coming out of yard. He's doing the tough carries. You don't want that with him. He played as a roaming centre, almost a second fullback last year, and was super effective. And I just wish they'd try and use him a little bit better.
Well, the Broncos are coming off their first loss of the season, but Chris Lawrence, you think they'll bounce back in the South East Queensland derby this weekend?
Yeah, look, I think they'll get the job done. I think, no one expected the Raiders to get over the Broncos last week, and I think sometimes when you do go on those sort of streaks of 4 or 5 in a row, particularly for the Broncos, who have had a couple of lean seasons, they probably needed that loss just to bring them back down a level. And I think sometimes when you do win those games, it might put a band-aid over some of the deficiencies that you wouldn't have otherwise really spent some time working on. I think the fact that they have had that loss, they will review their game. Some of those deficiencies will be fixed up, and I think they'll bounce back in a strong way.
Yes, it's going to be a huge Saturday night for Queenslanders. The Sunshine State's 3 leading teams all in action.
League is life. It's exhilaration, anticipation, highs and highlights. League is everything. That's why we've made a betting brand for League fans. That's better. Chances are you're about to lose.
Ricky Stewart said there was plenty of fight in his Raiders, and he was proven right when they bravely took down the competition leaders, the Broncos. Now, Tim, you think that the Raiders can continue this sort of form?
Yeah, I do. We showed their resilience last year, bouncing back after a tough loss to the Panthers. Now, we mentioned a few weeks ago, talking about the Raiders and their lack of offloading, and I think it's such an integral part of their game and being so forward dominant. 12 offloads last week in that win over the Broncos. So I think they've shown that that's where the second phase play comes from. That's where the points come from for their style of play, and I hope they can back that up again this week.
Do you think the pressure continues to mount on Anthony Griffin? Does that play into the Dragons this weekend?
Yeah, I think so. I really thought they would have got the job done against the Titans. They had previously beaten them before, but on the weekend they were just outclassed. So with every loss comes more scrutiny Griffin's way.
Absolutely. The Eels and the Bulldogs will resume hostilities at CommBank Stadium on Sunday. And Chris, do you think the Eels can get the job done and post their 3rd win of the season?
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, it's been well documented, their slow start to the year. They got the win against the Tigers on the weekend. I don't think they were that convincing, but sometimes when you're out of form, an ugly win is probably better than a really good win. It's sometimes getting that win when things aren't working well, and each and every week can get a little bit better. They scored a lot of tries off kicks, so they're going to have to find another way way to score. I think Viliame Kikau, who's out for the Bulldogs, is going to be a big loss. So I think Eels get the job done.
And Adokar as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Adokar and no Viliame Kikau. What a Sunday of football this promises to be. 2 games between 4 sides desperate to climb up the ladder. It's time to look at all our round 7 tips. Tim Williams has forged 2 ahead on the leaderboard for the year, but there are some brave plays from Josh and Chris this weekend. Now, lads, obviously this week is a big test in round 7. Josh has tipped the Roosters and the Storm. Do we agree with him on this one?
Yeah, look, we'll see about this one. I mean, interesting to see the leaderboard there, though. The cream rising to the top pretty quickly. Lucky you blokes could play footy because the analytical mind's a bit more questionable. Look, there's some tough games there. With the Manly Seagulls, I just like that. It's become a bit of an ambush factor. Teams bounce back after big losses more often than not, and I think they're a pretty resilient side. So I think at Brookvale, the Battle of Brookie, I think they'll get up for it. Melbourne, they started slow, 2 really big weeks, but I'm tipping Manly.
I think I am down by 7 points, and the Tigers are 0-6, and I've had tipped the Tigers 6 in a row, so could have made up a few there. But I'd agree with you with the Seagulls. I think at home they tend to bounce back and put on a really good performance, and they start well. I think they start well. Again, they're a side like South Sydney. They build some momentum. Tommy Turbo starts to hit his straps. He's been a little quiet over the last couple of weeks. And then obviously the Sharks and Roosters, to be honest, it was a bit of a flip of the coin. I've gone with the Sharks coming off the bye, came off a loss they should have won. And again, the Craig Fitzgibbon coach side coming up against his old club. They didn't drop 2 in a row last year. In a tight game, I think it might even go to Golden Point, but hopefully we can get those two up.
Josh, what do you like about the Roosters? It's the return of James Tedesco back from concussion. What is it about the Roosters?
Yeah, I think he's a massive part of why I chose them as well, but they have a really good record there at Shark Park. Trent Robinson doesn't like losing to his understudies as well, so they make a big habit of these games, of winning these games, and I think they're ready for a big performance after a disappointing game against the Storm. The Storm, on the other hand, against Manly, I think they've been playing a really gritty style of football, the style that we knew the Storm was like, and they've had
Storm of old.
They've had 2 good wins against South and the Roosters. So if they continue to play that way, they'll drag Manly into that battle of Brookie, as we said, and they'll come away with the win. And Munster at fullback, I think that's massive. I think the more he can get his hands on the ball, the better.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Chris, you've gone alone in tipping the Cowboys to get the job done across the ditch. Tell us why you think they can get the job done over the Warriors.
I just think they've had such a slow start to the year, and they were so good last year. I just think that at some point in time they've got to turn things around. Like, they can't go from such an informed team, everything clicking last year, to being so poor this year. I think they're still finding, I suppose, that second style of play. Obviously, they probably took a lot of teams by surprise last year. A lot of teams have probably game planned them a lot more. So I think if they just find that plan B in games when their initial plans aren't working, they'll get the job done. And I think, going up against a Warriors team who have been, a bit hot or cold, given they've probably exceeded some expectations to a degree. One
team that has hit their straps this year is the Penrith Panthers. They've really put some consistent games together. They come up against the Knights. Are you convinced by this one, Josh?
Yeah, I think they're playing some of their best footy now, and they've had 2 big wins. I feel sorry for the team they're coming up against this week. Lost Jaden Brayley during the week as well to an ACL. So he's a massive loss for the Knights.
Dominic Young's been super impressive out there for the Newcastle Knights. What are you impressed about him most, Tim?
Hasn't he been good? I think just work ethic's been really good with both Dominic Young and Greg Marju. They're getting through so many carries and so many quality carries as well. So it's such a big factor for that Newcastle Knights outfit. They do have at times a few defensive deficiencies in them, those 2 wingers, which you can get away with at times, but against the Penrith Panthers, you can't. So it'll be interesting to see if they can get up for that one. I really hope they do, because I love both of those players as attacking wingers. Let's see if they can do it in defence against the best side in the NRL.
I am going to direct this one back to you, Tim, because we want to know what your secret is to winning the leaderboard at the moment. I mean, we know Chris is right down the bottom, but what's the secret? Is it just being a stats man? Can you give us an insight?
Yeah, look, Eloise, I consume a hell of a lot of footy during the week and over the weekend and whatnot, so you can play as many games as you want between you boys, but if you're not watching every game like I am, then you're playing for second place.
Wait till you have a couple of kids, mate, and then you'll see how much footy you get to actually watch.
Well, I think you're tipping with your head, not with your heart. I think that's where I'm going right at the moment.
Yeah, well, let's just touch on that just lastly. We don't want to rub it in, but the West Tigers do get 2 points this week. Can they bounce back after a bye, Chris?
Well, I think the most important thing, I've got to really decide who I'm going to tip after the bye. Do I continue to tip the Tigers and stick solid, or do I try to go the reverse psychology, tip against them with the hope they win? So, yeah, look, they got the bye. To be honest, the bye has probably come at the best possible chance to try and reset and come back and hopefully, get a win in the not too distant future.
Yeah, fingers crossed for West Tigers fans. Well, thanks, Josh, Tim and Chris. And thank you as well at home. What a round of footy we have ahead of us. Don't forget to subscribe below and follow us on socials. We'll be back next week on Fox Sports Lab NRL.
G'day guys, the better SC Playbook multi of the week for round 7 is Brian To'o to score 2 tries this weekend into Nathan Cleary to score 65 plus official NRL Fantasy points. Mouth-watering matchup this week of the wingers, Brian To'o versus Greg Marju. Really excited for it. I do think Brian To'o will get the chocolates in this one though. Greg Marju, terrific attacker, has a few issues in defence, so I think To'o comes out on top here. That multi is paying $5.50. Good luck.
League is life. It's exhilaration, anticipation, highs and highlights. League is everything. That's why we've made a betting brand for league fans. That's better. Chances are you're about to lose.